Country Watch political intelligence briefing, Quick Hits, a weekly briefing of hot stories across the world in brief. I'm Denise Youngwood-Coleman, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief and Senior International Affairs Analyst at Country Watch. This week, I'm continuing to cover Haiti as a result of the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moise. In the days following the assassination, more information came to light indicating the involvement of approximately 24 assassins, an armed group of professional killers, or stated differently, mercenaries. A nationwide manhunt then followed to find those responsible, and among those arrested were 2 United States citizens and several retired members of the Colombian military. The Colombian assailants reportedly traveled from Bogota in Colombia to Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic and crossed the land border into Haiti. The Colombian National Intelligence Service and the director of the Intelligence Division of the National Colombian Police were being sent to Haiti to assist in the investigation. On July 11th, Haitian police announced that they had arrested Christian Emmanuel Sanon, a Haitian national with political objectives, who recruited the Colombian gunmen responsible for the assassination of President Moise. According to the police chief, Leon Chaul, Sanon recruited 26 mercenaries from a Florida-based Venezuelan security company. The motivation for the assassination of the Haitian president remained unclear. Still, the reality was that Moise, who took office in 2017, ruled by decree for a year and a half, despite protests demanding that he step down, as his term in power was scheduled to end in February of 2021. The clear authoritarian streak of his leadership aside, Moise was also accused of facilitating Haiti's slide into lawlessness, with kidnappings and attacks occurring with impunity, and with urban gang murder becoming regularized fare. In the background was the reality of a deteriorating standard of living in an already impoverished country. Close to 60% of the population was living below the poverty line, often in squalor. The Haitian landscape was marked by chaos, and with the death of the president, however controversial he may have been, opened the proverbial trapdoor to a power chasm. Meanwhile, a delegation from the United States consisting of representatives from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the State Department, the Justice Department, the National Security Council, and the Department of Homeland all met with officials in Haiti's government on the weekend following the assassination. That United States delegation appeared to welcome the first iteration of stabilization that came in the form of a Senate resolution to choose an interim president. That person was Joseph Lambert. A power struggle could be in the offing, with Prime Minister Claude Joseph claiming that he still held his post. Staying in the Caribbean, Cuba was experiencing rare mass protests as people railed against food shortages, power cuts, and economic challenges. While the government has hailed the success of Cuba's development of the Abdala COVID-19 vaccine as it grapples with the global pandemic, the reality was that the virus is affecting the economy of the communist island nation. While protests have mainly been peaceful, they have been fractious moments. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel responded to the turmoil by broadcasting a national message in which he warned that any destabilization of the country would be met with a revolutionary response. Moving across the world, former South African President Jacob Zuma was jailed for contempt by the country's constitutional court. Zuma had been implicated for the plunder of state funds during his time in office at the helm of South Africa. The constitutional court ordered Zuma to respond to questions for a judicial inquiry, and Zuma defied that court order to testify at the Graft Commission. In response, the court ruled that Zuma would be jailed for 15 months for contempt. In the weeks after Zuma was jailed, South Africa was rocked by mass protests. Demonstrations and flash of violence appeared to be sparked by Zuma's legal consequences, but quickly morphed into a wider protest movement against the economic strife and pervasive inequality in South Africa. In Sweden, Prime Minister Stefan Löfven resigned following a no confidence vote. The motion of no confidence was put forth by the far-right Sweden Democrats, but backed by the Conservative Moderate Party and the Christian Democrats. Meanwhile, the Left Party also supported the no confidence vote in protest of a proposal to reduce housing rent controls. A week after becoming the first Swedish government leader to be defeated by a no confidence vote, Prime Minister Löfven resigned from office. He had the choice of either resigning or calling a snap election, but opted for the former, not the latter, saying that an election would not be in the best interest of Sweden given the COVID-19 pandemic. With Löfven resigning, the Speaker of the Riksdag, Andres Norlin, would have to select a prime ministerial candidate who could conceivably be supported by a majority of the Swedish parliament. At the end of the proverbial day, it was Löfven was set to become the head of government again. The ultimate survivor of Swedish politics, Löfven was narrowly re-elected as prime minister by the parliament. His next step would be to form a two-party government with the Greens. Then the test would come in the form of passing a budget. Finally, let's discuss the latest with the pandemic in the United States. Public health officials were sounding the alarm with regard to the far more transmissible Delta variant of the coronavirus. While public health officials have been urging Americans to get vaccinated, states in the South were significantly below the national vaccination rate, opening up the likelihood of regional disparities in dealing with the lethal virus. According to data disseminated by the New York Times, less than 50% of adults in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, and South Carolina lagged behind national vaccination rates as well. On the other side of the equation, 16 states that were set to meet the July 4th, 2021 goal of having at least 70% of their adult population receiving one COVID vaccine were Democratic voting states in 2020. California was the most glaring example of those states. California was the first state in the United States to go into pandemic lockdown, and it boasts the biggest success with regard to beating COVID-19. Over 70% of the population had at least one dose of that vaccine. Overall, persons living in rural and Republican areas were highly vaccine hesitant. Dr. Peter Hotez, the Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, described the phenomenon as follows, and I quote, "These are all deep red states, so what we are seeing in the United States is the partisan divide around vaccination rates," unquote. In July, with an eye on ramping up vaccinations, President Joe Biden announced that there needed to be a direct door-to-door community effort to target the unvaccinated. This announcement earned immediate criticism from Republicans viewing it as coercion. As has been said repeatedly, vaccines are not vaccinations. In order to beat this pandemic, people need to be vaccinated. We're all in this together. Put the partisanship aside and please get vaccinated. As we head into the Olympics, I'm going to focus a bit on Olympic coverage. You'll be able to find our coverage next week ahead of the opening ceremonies to the front page of our website at www.countrywatch.com. Also, for more information about our political stories, read my political intelligence briefing and my coronavirus report, both of which are accessible from the front page of the Country Watch website at www.countrywatch.com. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And remember that we live in an interconnected world.